Greetings, fellow Gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru.
And I'm Count Jackula, brother.
And today we're going to talk about Dark Match, a wrestling-themed horror movie on Shudder from writer-director Lowell Dean, who some of you may know as the writer and director of both Wolf Cop movies, which are a blast. So if you haven't seen the Wolf Cop movies, I highly recommend them. They're exactly what they say on the tin. This movie is pretty interesting. It's about a low-budget wrestling troupe, like a low-tier wrestling troupe.
Like a second or third tier, level, AEW.
Exactly. Who in the 1980s are invited to a dark match, which is essentially an unsanctioned off-the-grid match on a private estate. So they are invited to a private estate to do this dark match for a private crowd, only to find out that the private crowd they've been invited to may or may not be an evil cult.
Who could have seen that one coming?
Who could have seen that one coming? There's more to it that we'll get into in the spoilers, because there actually is some reveals later on in the movie.
Yeah.
But that's the premise. That's the crux of the movie. The first thing right off the bat I noticed about this movie, it's a lot more serious than you expect it to be.
Yeah. You hear wrestling horror movie and you're like, this is going to be bad.
You think it's either going to be really bad, because there are some actual wrestlers in this movie. In fact, Chris Jericho plays the primary antagonist of the movie.
Yeah.
So you expect really bad cheesy acting, and you're kind of hoping that it's going to be so bad it's good.
Yeah, but it actually turns out it's a very competent movie.
It's a very competent movie. It's very solid all the way through. The actual emotional stakes of the movie actually do hit very well. And despite it being low budget, it is relatively gory, so it's got that going on. I do feel like I kind of wanted the movie to go crazier than it went.
I know what you mean.
I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying that the movie, I wanted it to go to 11 and it stayed at a 10.
Yeah.
For most of the movie.
Yeah. I would agree. There were some times where I was like, it could have gone more berserk.
When you compare it to something like Wolf Cop, for example, which is more overtly cheesy and goofy and in your face with how ridiculous it is, I kind of wanted a little bit more of that in this movie. But what I got, I enjoyed.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It also is interesting in that it's a wrestling horror movie which has a black female lead.
Yes, that was a really cool aspect too, because when you think about writing a movie about being a wrestler, that's not where you go.
No, you normally go with okay, white guy, and no one would blame you.
The average standard wrestling star in any given time is usually either a white guy, or these days you might also get a black guy.
Yeah. You wouldn't think black woman.
You wouldn't think black woman, because women's wrestling is also something that has historically been looked down upon.
Yeah.
It's more looked highly now than it was back then.
Yeah, it's treated better now, but it was never good.
But the fact that this movie is set in the 80s means it actually has that added dynamic of how looked down upon women's wrestling is.
Yeah.
So you have a character who is not only struggling with being in a low-rent wrestling troupe, it's not the big leagues, it's not the WWF, which is now the WWE, but back then it was the F.
Yeah, back then it was the F.
It's not that. It's not WCW. They are literally a small troupe that goes town to town putting on small shows. So she's struggling with that, but she's also struggling with being a woman in that league. One of two women, apparently.
Yeah.
Wrestling with the same woman almost every fucking night. The other thing she's struggling with is she's also black in this equation.
Yeah.
So there's racism involved, because they're not just going town to town, they're going to town in some towns that aren't very friendly to people like her.
Yeah.
And this movie takes all of those subjects completely seriously and actually kind of nails them, to be honest.
Yeah, very much so. They get there and immediately people are asking about her because she's dating a white guy.
Yep.
And they're like, oh.
Yeah. That kind of passive aggressive smiling.
Yeah.
A whole lot of oh, bless your heart kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you're oh, we know what you mean. We know what's going on here.
You're talking about.
We know what's going on here, especially since when they arrive on the property, it's very obvious that everyone there is super religious.
Yeah.
So you have the added angle of being in a rural area with the rural area's rich folks.
Yes.
And they're being super religious and racist.
Yes. So, like, right off, they're just not in a good place.
Which honestly brings up a huge question of why they even asked this troupe to be there, but don't worry, there's an answer for that question later on. The other thing that I really liked about this movie is it treats wrestling with respect.
Yeah, it does. You know, what we're doing is, like, high-impact stunts rather than, like, real fighting.
Oh, yeah. The movie actually acknowledges the difference between, you know, real life and kayfabe and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And even goes into it within the movie so that you're not just left behind. The acting in this movie is really good. I love the actress playing Misbehave, our main character.
Yeah.
That's the other thing she's struggling with in this, is that she is playing a heel in the wrestling world, in their wrestling universe that they've created in this troupe. She is a heel, and she's not really allowed to ever become a face.
Yeah.
Is it because she's a woman? Is it because she's black? Well, there is a woman they're giving an opportunity, and that woman is not black.
Yeah, it's very white.
It might be.
Yeah.
You know, this other wrestler, Kate the Great, is getting like all the laurels and respect that she wants.
Yeah.
At first, you're kind of like, okay, Kate the Great seems like she's a little passive aggressive.
Oh, yeah.
But then when they actually go on the trip to this location, to this like mansion they're going to, it's almost as if she's like love bombing her, which is a complete 180 from the way she was presented earlier in the movie when you're first introduced to her.
Yeah. The movie pretty much opens up with Misbehave, our main character, crossing the line and actually punching Kate in the face.
Yes, because she's giving her a lot of shit in the wrestling match because she wants to look really good for a recruiter that's in the crowd, probably for one of the big like WCW, WWF kind of companies. And that recruiter could make Kate the Great go into the big time if the match goes well and they actually like impress the recruiter. In order for that to happen, both wrestlers, because the way wrestling works is that it's kind of like a dance. You're only as good as your partner.
Yeah.
You need them to sell your hits as much as you need to throw those hits.
Yeah.
And so like she's constantly on Misbehave's ass. Do this, do that. It'll look good. It'll look great for me or whatever. And Misbehave is like trying to do all that, but she's also like low key resenting it because they're both in the match.
Yeah. Kate the Great says the wrong thing and then it's like, all right, that's it.
And then she actually hits her, which you're not supposed to do. You're not actually, it's not actually a contact sport in that way.
Yeah. It's not backyard wrestling.
No. You know? You're empathizing with her even though you know she crossed the line there.
Yeah.
The layered emotional complexity like that.
Yeah.
Even though it is a movie about wrestlers versus cults. I will say the movie does have a low budget, and you can kind of tell at points, particularly when you're watching the wrestling matches. The crowd sometimes disappears in the background.
Yeah. Okay, we had 5 people to be in the crowd in this.
Yeah, we have to use the same 5 people in the bleachers on this angle and the same 5 people in the bleachers on that angle. It's okay, we'll put them in hoods or something.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
It's one of those kinds of movies, but they make their budget work for what it's worth.
Well, yeah, they did a lot with very little.
Exactly. So if you're into wrestling or if you're into horror movies about cults, then I highly recommend Dark Match, currently available on Shudder. I'm sure it'll be available on other platforms, but right now it's on Shudder, and that's how we watched it.
Yeah, I would actually dare say that if you are a fan of wrestling, you're going to get a lot out of this movie.
You're going to get more out of it than everyone else.
Yeah.
Because as someone who used to be a fan of wrestling, I feel like there was a layer to the movie for me that wouldn't have been there had I didn't have that past history with the thing.
Yeah. If you understand wrestling, if you know what kayfabe is, if you know what a heel and a face is, things like that, then you're going to get a lot out of this movie.
If you've watched any documentary about like the behind the scenes wrestling stuff, like the struggles the actual wrestlers have gone through doing the sport and putting on the show for everyone.
Yeah, like documentaries like Beyond the Mat.
Yeah, 100%. Anything like that, it very much feels like it was made by someone who paid attention to all those things.
Oh, yeah.
And so with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, let us move on to the spoilers so we can talk about what's going on with this here cult. All right, so the movie does a little bit of a trick on you. It leads you to believe when they first enter this compound that this is like a Jesus cult.
Yeah.
Like these are like uberly religious Jesus freaks. The racism and the like homophobia kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of like feeds into that, right? Because that's what you expect out of a Jesus cult.
Yeah. But very quickly becomes, oh no, it's Satan.
It's a Satan cult. These people are worshiping the Dark Lord, and they're being led by Chris Jericho, Jericho's character, who I believe in the movie is called the Prophet.
Yeah.
That is his persona in the cult as well as his persona in the ring. One of the things that's revealed over the course of the movie is that he used to be a wrestler himself.
Yeah.
And when he was a wrestler, he was denied the opportunity to win a belt. And the belt went to one of the troupe members in the current troupe that he has invited to this whole thing. So really, while this movie is about them trying to sacrifice this troupe to the Dark Lord so that he can rise from the fucking depths of hell, it's also a revenge for him.
Yeah.
It's personal. And he's even sent his daughter to infiltrate the cult in the form of Kate the Great, which is why she starts like doing this 180 like love bombing thing all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't end up working for the Prophet because Misbehave kills the shit out of fucking Kate the Great in the ring.
Kills the shit out of her.
That's the other thing. There is a point in which like the actual like horror happens when like they're facing their own sacrifices.
Yeah.
And even that is taken relatively seriously.
Yeah.
Like the matches are actually a little harrowing.
Yeah, each match has like a gimmick. And like the gimmick is deadly.
The gimmicks are all elemental based. So there's a fire match, there's a water match, there's an air match.
Yeah.
And these are represented by like a pit that's constantly on fire in the middle of the ring and like flamethrowers on each end of the ring that are glowing that you can throw your opponent into. Like a giant fan during the air one that's at the bottom of the fucking ring. The earth one was probably the one where I could tell that they weren't sure what to do with, but I was actually impressed with what they came up with.
Yeah.
They put a layer of dirt in the ring and then filled the dirt with shards of glass and then took their hands, put it in like instant glue and then shoved those hands in the glass. So they had like glass fists.
hands. Yeah.
It's fucking gnarly. And all this stuff is done practically like in the movie. It doesn't look like they had a budget to do any sort of digital effects.
No. It looks like they actually made like fake glass and shit.
You know, and like when people are getting cut open, they're actually
like a prosthetic.
Like a prosthetic being cut open and guts pouring out and shit. It's pretty cool. It's pretty good. They did a good job with it.
It's fun.
It's fun.
It's fun.
The main character isn't actually central to the villain's plot. She is more like, she's the John McClane.
Yeah.
She is the factor he did not factor in who ends up like ultimately saving the day when his actual goal is to get at her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Who is the former like champion of this troupe, but now he's like a lot older. So he's kind of 1 foot in retirement, but not quite.
Yeah. He's a little over the hill.
Yeah.
You know.
I was impressed how invested in their relationship I was.
Well, yeah, because like they keep doing this. The cult keeps trying to like kind of pull them apart.
Yeah. A great example of something they do to try to like separate the two is there's a point in which they have this like big party, and during the party free drinks are being handed out and some of those drinks are drugged.
Yeah.
So her boyfriend character ends up getting drugged and he realizes before everyone else who Prophet is.
Yeah, he realizes who the head of the compound is.
And kind of realizes they're in danger before anyone else does. But he is drugged, so he's running around the party, slurring his words and slowly losing his own balance, and like everything's going all blurry and weird.
Yeah.
And so no one's really listening to him because they're all drunk and partying.
Yeah.
And he ends up getting lured by some chicks into essentially having a little mini affair.
And having like a threesome with them.
Yep.
You know, and this is all happening after like Misbehave says like, we're not dating, we're not a couple, like how dare you.
Absolutely. So poor guy, he wakes up the next morning and she's like mad at him, and it's just like, but I don't even remember what happened.
Yeah, he literally does
he
not
was
know
literally
what
roofied.
happened.
Oh man, I did not expect to be this invested in the characters in this movie, but I'm sitting here going like, no, I want you two crazy kids to work this out.
Yeah. The movie ends, they escape the compound. The ritual is still completed.
Yeah.
So the devil rises.
Yep.
And the last shot of the movie is the devil and Misbehave running at each other like they're about to start a match.
Yep.
Which is not a bad way to end the movie, but I really wanted to see that match.
Yeah, I'm sitting there going like, I need Dark Match 2, like immediately.
Yeah. Just like 2, boom, open with that match. Just be like, whoa. I think my favorite character in the whole movie was probably the masked wrestler guy.
Yes, the luchador dude.
Yeah, the luchador wrestler.
I forget his name, but he was awesome.
Yeah.
Also had the moment of most badassery.
Yes.
That moment, like he like straight up survives being stabbed to death and pretends to be dead. And when he sits back up and she's like, I thought you were dead. And he's just like, kayfabe, baby. Like,
yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah. It was a great moment.
This is actually the second wrestling-themed movie I've seen that has pit wrestlers up against occults. The first one I watched was a movie called, it's like
Here for Blood.
And it's about a wrestler who takes on a babysitting job when his wife can't make it to the gig.
Oh.
So he goes to babysit this little girl when a cult shows up to sacrifice the girl. Now that movie is a lot more like Wolf Cop.
Okay.
Where
okay.
it's really in your face and ridiculous and cheesy and goofy. So if this movie doesn't give you that feeling like you wanted more Wolf Cop-esque kind of like goofiness, then I highly recommend that other movie. I'll put the title right here because for whatever reason, I'm forgetting the title of the movie. And so with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, where can they find you, Count Jackula?
Well, you can find me here on YouTube where I stream every weeknight at about 7 Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You should come on down to the stream or follow me on Blue Sky. And what about you?
Y'all know me, I'm the Horror Guru. I use many social media platforms, but these days I mainly use Blue Sky, so go follow me on there. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you'd like to help out either of us more directly, be sure to check out our Patreon pages. And remember, if you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way, and we will certainly accept more. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, I want you to comment below, and be sure to comment below using the hashtag kayfabe, baby. Use the hashtag kayfabe, baby. That way we know, Jack, the world, your friends, and everyone else in between, they all know that you successfully survived a death cult. Congratulations.
Never break kayfabe.
And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, peace out, and we'll catch y'all later.